And those of you watching at home, this is the question for today. You want to make sure that you get this down somewhere. Remember, these are important questions because they make up your semester final exam. So you want to make sure to write down each question along with the answers that we go through in class. So the answer to this question was light goes from a light source to an object to our eyes. And now we'll take some notes on this. You might ask yourself, how is it that you can see the sun? And this is going to be a review because we talked about it outside. The sun is right here, beautiful blue sun. Why is it that you can see the sun? The answer is that it has a light ray, and that light ray goes into your eyes. That's why you're able to see the sun directly. Now, if you look at the sun directly, that might carry some other consequences that wouldn't be good. Don't stare directly into the sun, unless it's a beautiful sunset and it's on the horizon. It doesn't hurt your eyes. But you get the idea. Because this guy's looking directly at the sun, he's a little sad because his eyes hurt. So then the question we looked at, most of our time outside was, why is it that we see other things, not just the sun? Why is it that if there were some nice little roses outside, that's as good as my flowers are going to get. You'll just have to deal with it. They look like little hands. So the reason we're able to see roses like that is because the light rays go from the sun to the objects, and from the objects into our eyes. That's how light rays work. The other important thing to remember about this is that light rays, as I mentioned outside, are always straight. They do not bend, they do not curve, unless you're talking about some very, very specific circumstances that we'll talk about in a separate lesson one day. But for the purposes of what we're doing today and for the purposes of what you'll be doing on the homework, you want to use a straight edge to draw these light rays so that they're nice and straight. So use a ruler, use the side of your student handbook or whatever. Make sure those light rays are straight. You want to get into that habit. Another picture we could draw. If the sun was here, person's here. He's happy because he's not looking directly at the sun this time. And he can see a tree. And he's happy that he can see a tree. He can smell it from a distance, and it smells like Christmas. And the way that the light rays would work with this is, once again, the light rays would go from the sun. They would hit the object. Those light rays would go into the person's eyes. Now, what happens if I drop a magical brick wall of science in front of the red evergreen? The light rays aren't going to make it to his face this time. They would go from the sun. They would light that object up just fine, but those light rays are not going to make it to his eyes. And that's why you don't see those objects. Not because they're not lit up, but just because those light rays don't have a straight path to your eyes. The light ray does not curve. It does not go underneath. It's just stopped by that brick wall. Questions so far? Okay. A couple other things to just kind of mention. How many light rays do you suppose are coming off the sun? A lot. More than we can even count. Light rays coming off a light source are infinite. So if I wanted to draw more light rays coming off the sun, I could certainly do that. Maybe I would say they begin from this location They would go this direction, and 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 everything in between. Light sources emit light in every single direction. And so you have to make sure you treat them that way. There's not just one light ray from the sun going to your eyes, or one light ray going to the objects and then into your eyes. There are, in reality, an infinite number of light rays that are used to light those things up and are going through your little pupils. Same thing with a light bulb, same thing with any light source. So just realize that. And another reminder just to make sure that you do draw those with a straight edge. Let's talk about shadows. Here's the sun. Here's a brick wall. Maybe you want to draw what kind of shadow that's going to produce. And that's something that you can do. And to do this properly, you're going to have to use a straight edge. And I'm going to have to use a straight edge. And I'm going to have to go get a straight edge. Alright, so all you do is you take your light rays, and there are light rays from the sun going in every direction. This way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. And there's one spot where there's a very important light ray. And that's the spot where it just barely grazes the edge of the top of this brick wall looking thing. So I'm going to line up my straight edge with that spot. This light ray here is super important. You can tell me why this light ray is super important. Yes?
Someone can make the shadow.
Yeah, exactly. It tells us exactly where the shadow is going to be. So, light ray comes in right here. Would there be a shadow over here? Nah. There's no shadow over here because all these other light rays can make it. Whoa. Your light ray should not look like this. Your light ray should look nice and straight. But all these other light rays can get over here. So there's no shadow in that area. All these light rays can make it here, so there's no shadow over here. But if you'll notice about this spot right here, there is not a single light ray that can make it to this space. And so what that means is we've got a shadow there. And that's how you determine where those shadows are. Wherever there's a spot where no light rays can make it to, that's where a shadow is. I got just one more example that I'd like to show you here, because oftentimes you're going to have more than one light source to deal with in these problems where you have to figure out where the shadows are located. And they'll look a little bit like what I'm about to draw on the board. Yes, it does. Should we give him braces? He looks a little bit worried. So let's say these two things are light sources. Now it looks even more like a face because he has eyelashes. So these are our light sources. This is an object that is solid that the light rays would not be able to make it through. And we'll say that there's some sort of screen down here, and we want to figure out where the shadow is on this screen. You'll be doing this for a fair amount of problems on the homework. So what you do is you draw light rays. And just like I explained in the example over here, the most important light rays are the ones that just barely graze the edge of an object. So if I'm going to deal with this light source first, there are two spots where a light ray from that light source is just going to barely graze the object. It's going to just barely graze it this way and that way. So I'm going to draw both of those light rays in. Another habit to get set is when you're drawing your light rays, you want to draw little arrows on them too, so that you remember what direction the light rays are going. That's going to come in handy later on. So of course now I got to draw another light ray going past the other edge. So I'll line it up. It's going to land somewhere out there. And I'm halfway done. Just do the same thing for the other side then. It just barely grazes that spot. There. So again, all we've done is just started from the middle of each light source and drawn two light rays. One that just barely goes by one edge, one that just barely goes by the other edge. And we have this nice little pattern here. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the importance of this pattern? So when we're looking at this area back here, do light rays from this light source make it here? Yeah. Do light rays from this light source make it here? Yeah, they do. Because I could draw a straight line from here to my finger, and there's nothing in its way. So, there's no shadow there. Same thing would be true on the right side. There is nothing in the way of light rays making it to these locations. How about the middle? Can any light rays make it here? No. So this is a full shadow. And these two spots are a little bit interesting, because some of the light rays are blocked. No light ray from this light source is going to make it here, but all the light from this light source will. So you could call this a couple different things. It's probably easiest just to call it like a partial shadow. Same thing, of course, would be true over here. All the light rays from this light source can freely make it to this location. None of the light rays from this side will make it to that spot. So this would also be partial shadow. Now, if you want to go all scientific, and I think the worksheet might mention these words once or twice, just so that you have these in your vocabulary, you don't have to remember them or anything. Another name for full shadow is umbra. Another name for partial shadow is penumbra. So yeah, that's how light works. Questions on this? Good. Okay, so I'm going to pass out the homework. This is going to be due tomorrow when you get back to class. So it looks like you got about 15 minutes to get rocking and rolling on this thing today. Don't overthink things on this. There are actually 2 worksheets in here, and you're responsible for both of them. The second worksheet is all this shadow stuff. The first worksheet mostly has to do with drawing straight light rays and kind of demonstrating your knowledge of what you've figured out from today. And remember, what I'm checking when I'm going to come around to see if you're going to get full credit for this tomorrow, I'm going to come around to make sure that everything is attempted. So if you go home and you don't get something and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to lose points. You're not. Just do the best you can on it, and that's what tomorrow is for. It's for us to go through and answer any questions and see what you had any trouble with. And that's all there is to this. But yeah, if you have questions while you're working on this in class here, be sure to let me know and I'll come and help you out.